Shoo! Aloha, brohas, bukaye, brothers. Peter checking in via Bethnal Green, East London.
Yes, grand rising sacred sons, brothers and sisters, there is no time like the present. And here we are at Sacred Sons Convergence 8, the return. One of the things that really stands out to me about these gatherings, these epic experiences that we get to share in, is all of the powerful men, all of the powerful leaders who show up to share their gifts, to share their love, to share their passion, and to share their support. The support for other brothers who are on this journey, but ultimately the support for humanity. If there is one thing we are about here at Sacred Sons, it is uplifting the consciousness and the heart medicine for all of humanity, for all our relations. So with that, today's guest, he's one of the men I'm talking about. He's a men's work coach. He's a Sacred Sons leader. He's a beautiful human. Please welcome Peter Eugène Bennett.
Thank you, brother.
It's a long time coming, my brother.
Yes, I. Yes, I.
We met under the oak trees.
Oh, blokes.
We met under the oak trees at Liberty Rising. Is that about a year and a half ago?
Year and a half, March 2022.
What inspired you to make the trip across the pond all the way to the desert of Southern California to be with Sacred Sons?
Brother, it was a deep calling, a deep remembrance. And like many men, I was called in by social media, actually. Yeah, I saw the beautiful Brinnon video on YouTube and I was like, that's a bit of me. Yeah. It really felt like these are brothers cut from the same cloth. And I saw you and I was like, oh, that's like my big bro. Yeah. And so I came out looking for love, looking for brotherhood, and I found so much more. Yeah,
what did you find? What did you find coming into the space, being inspired, feeling the call? You know, we're putting that call out on social media pretty hard now. We've got men joining us from all around the world, all walks of life. What did you find?
Do you know what I found? I found myself. That was the main thing. It was realizing that beyond all the masks I wore on my daily, just all the wounds I carried as a young man, that chip on my shoulder, that actually I could be supported and I could trust other brothers, you know, to really hold me up and to hold me accountable. Yeah. Which is a big piece, you know, because I've been rolling lone wolfing, being a solo dolo, and a lot of my life, man, like just carrying that cross on my back. And when I came out to San Diego to Liberty Rising, I was like, oh, no, I've arrived. Like, this is my home. And like, you know, man, I was there for 10 weeks traveling across the States with y'all and picking up some codes and breaking bread, sitting around the fire. And I've never left, man. I've been showing up ever since.
Yeah, man. And you're one of those guys who comes in, and I'm like, this looks like my little bro. Okay, all right. And on the real, like, as we broadcast this message, we are truly calling in all men. We believe that this work of masculine alchemy is truly for all men. And I get inspired to see my brothers of multicultural backgrounds showing up, men who embody the bridge, you know, within themselves. And so I remember this, but like, is there a piece in there for you? You're seeing a brother like Kale, a brother like me, slanging this men's work. And now here you are as a leader in it and as a coach in it. What does it mean for you to be a bridge in this work?
It feels like my calling. Yeah. You know, it feels like my purpose. A large part of my journey was discovering that I had everything within me to begin with. And so seeing others who exemplified that, you know, role modeling that, was like an invitation to step deeper into this journey, onto this road. And so, yeah, like it's been a year and a half and the time has just been so potent. Like I've gone from strength to strength, from being Wolfpack, obviously doing the leadership training online, which was huge for me, like being in that container, being able to connect with brothers all over the world, and then going to Maui as well and connecting with Kale and all the bros out there and really receiving the medicine, the mana of that land, and then traveling across back to the mainland, to Colorado, to Oregon, back to California, to the summit, and then all the way to the UK, bro. We brought through the first ever immersions in Europe. We brought through the first ever EMXs in Europe. Primes.
Devin UK, stand up.
Yeah, man, it's been a blessing, and I'm eternally grateful. And I really found that I found my leadership, my like self resourcefulness, so that I can like walk in a good way.
Yeah, we're just coming off of Sacred Sons Convergence 8 in Scotland. So I got to really see your leadership, and I got to see how I'm coming into Europe. I wasn't at those EMXs. So I'm coming into your brotherhood now, coming into the European men looking at you as a leader. And to see that was really beautiful, like to see that this full arc kind of come full circle.
Yeah.
We have the Ouroboros as a symbol of this time. And I really see you on this journey. It's like, it's a, I like to say it's a template for ascension. It's an accelerated path, isn't it? Like the amount of growth we can experience in just a short year with support and with other brothers.
Yeah.
And so what is it like for you to return as a leader?
Wow. It's as if like, again, I've been walking myself and other brothers and sisters home.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a homecoming. There was a moment during Convergence 8 in Scotland where I was gifted the acorns and up-leveled to LT3. And I had no words. I'm a man of many words. I like to be a wordsmith and make magic. And all I could do was share my tears in that environment. And it's something that doesn't come easy for me, being that as a child I was told to man up and be like the rock for my family, and to be witnessed by all the men there, 150 plus, with tears, like it was life-changing.
Yeah. So what is that journey like for you? For Peter Eugène Bennett, little Peter, grown up in East London yet?
I grew up in London. I then moved to Bangladesh as a young man. I was probably about 4 years old. My dad's an engineer, and grew up in Asia actually for a lot of my life, like traveling around India, Thailand. Moved to Pakistan. So for me, it's always been like nomadic, actually. And that's been quite difficult in the sense of like a clash of cultures, identity crisis, like always moving schools, like never truly like having like a solid foundation, roots.
Right.
And so like that kind of like uprooting so often led to me feeling a bit untethered, actually. And was shy as a child and unable to like feel connected, and kind of kept myself in the background, playing it small. And now, like, stepping into this, like, suddenly I'm, like, full bloom, peacock, like, feathers out. And so, yeah, man, it's been beautiful, man. And, yeah, I just love the mirrors I see in all the men that come here and recognize that we're all on the same journey.
Totally. Yeah. A man of many words. It's hard for me to imagine you as being shy. And I can imagine, like, moving around a lot. Maybe it's not only like the looseness and foundation, but it causes you to wear a new mask. I'm in this new place and now I got to show up like this. And now I'm going to be in another place. I have to show up like this. Is that something that you feel like you carried, like having to wear multiple masks in this walk?
It's something that I'm very familiar with, and particularly with the men and now the sisters that I work with. I recognize that we've all had some form of like protection, that we built up walls or shields in some cases. You can call it a mask, you can call it a sword, whatever it is to protect yourself. And now like my work is about safety. It's about being able to like feel like all the feels, being able to express it like in a fearless, beautiful, authentic way, and really like tap into the joy of that inner child that might have been suppressed as a young man, young woman.
Yeah. So how do we do it? I'm all about tools, right? I'm all about actually giving tools. There's a brother or sister listening. They got the armor up. They got their sword, their shield. Why put it down? Why is it important?
There's many ways to tap into that, and I feel like the simplest way for me was just to begin with self-inquiry. That's always the first pillar, the mind, expansion. And I found that in different ways. I think meditation was a really powerful thing. In fact, finding that like stilling the mind, sitting in that silence was a good way to kind of like, not so much disconnect, but just disassociate from the pieces that weren't real. Stepping into the fire of transformation, and all that is burnt is that which is not me. And so I always find that's a really good place to start, whether it's journaling, whether it's just, looking in the mirror, saying affirmations, speaking to, your inner child, and just saying that all is well, that you are cared for, that you are safe,
Looking after that inner child. There's a lot of pop psychology happening out here. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of Jungian experts all of a sudden in this world. If you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I'm one of them.
Cool. Well, let's go into it. And you know, there's something very real about what we do here. Yes, there's some bits of psychological rewiring that happen. But I often find it's in that real relating. It's in actually touching, you know, those places that maybe we hold that inner child and just getting out and playing. We're just coming off of playing a game of flag football. You know what I'm saying?
First touchdown in my life, bro.
First touchdown. Yeah, you didn't grow up playing football, right?
Yeah.
You know, more play, more connection, more actually like just sitting down eye to eye.
Yeah.
Not like we're like in the therapist's office, but I just think that there's so much medicine in the real, in the tangible, in actually getting on the field and saying, you know what, I'm going to play today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, is there a part of your work where like, we'll get into some of the Jungian stuff. We'll go into the shadow. Is there a part of your work? Cause I feel it in you. You exude play.
Yeah.
Even for me, you like bring out the spirit of play.
Yeah. Yeah. That for me is the second pillar of self-care. And it's about the body and actually acknowledging that like there's so much energy within us that, you know, it's required to come out and expressed in a beautiful, open way. And so like play for me was something that I remember as a kid. My earliest memory actually was hiding my cousin's shoes in a cupboard and then him running around trying to find them and me like laughing in the background. And so when I tapped into that memory, I was like, of course, like that's my operating system. It's joyful, it's playful, it's youthful. And so now when I'm in these spaces, there's a lot of heavy lifting, bro. There's a lot of work on the field that we're doing, you know, excavating and finding, you know, through the shadows that light. And so I love to keep it fresh. I love to keep it exuberant. And so my way of doing that is just by like playing with people, being a bit of a trickster at times, actually, that iktomi, that babaloo, like just making sure that like, you know, we're keeping each other on our toes, man, playing around and keeping it fresh. And yeah, I love the way that I've seen all these brothers come through. Like a lot of stoic men show up and very much with their armor on, and I love to de-armor them with some laughter.
Yeah. A little bit more of that in the world would go a long way. You know what I mean? And I feel that here, man. Just imagine 300 men coming together with love in their hearts, like to actually lay down those shields, to actually come into contact with maybe that boy who was hurt, maybe that boy who was alone and didn't get to play, you know, whatever that is. In coaching men specifically, let's go there. Like, how do you access the shadow? Maybe there's a man who's like, you know, I feel my darkness, but I don't know it. How do we access the darkness? How do you access your darkness?
Bro, like that's been a lifelong journey of like tapping into the blind spots in my life where like I'm not entirely aware of what's happening behind the scenes. And so again, it's like reaching back into why do I feel shy, for example, you know, why do I feel insecure at times? And I just trace that back to the earliest memories through meditation, through breath, being guided. So when I sit my brother down or a sister down, I'm like, okay, let's actually do some exercises where we can access those places of pain. And it is difficult, you know, for a lot of us, you know, we have difficulty in accessing the parts that we rarely show other people, that we keep in private. And so it's about building trust to begin with, having our agreements and being able to know that, you know, we have this camaraderie, we have this awareness of each other so that we can go further in. Yeah.
If I was to say, like, what is that place of pain within you? What is that? You know, I get the shy part. There's something behind that too, right? But what is like, is there a pain? You know, in my life, I feel very fortunate. I grew up in a broken home. My parents were separated the time I was 1. You know, so I came into this life already divided. And at the same time, I carry so much gratitude just for the love that I was exposed to.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me, let me think about this. Yeah, when I tap into the pain and the longing, it's like, for me, it's like, it's probably in the loneliness.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we calling so many people together in the first place? Like, do I want to be surrounded? You know, do I want to call that in for myself? What does that place look like in you?
For many of us, myself included, it starts with my caregivers, with my parents, and I also seeking the approval of my father. And one of the original stories I had, which is what my dad told me when I was super young, was that he wanted another girl. I'm the youngest in my family, and I kind of felt rejection from a very early stage. And my mother would like mollycoddle me and protect me and wouldn't ask me to do the chores because I was the youngest. I was her blue-eyed boy. And so there was a sense of like, okay, I'm seeking all this safety from the feminine because my father, the authority figure in my life, didn't give me the love that I required at that time. And so that pain really starts with men. Actually, and that's why this men's work is my calling in life. Like my father called me Peter because he had 4 best friends all by the same name. Wow. And so when I look back on my origin story, I was like, oh, that was my first men's council. You know, and Peter means rock as well. It's like the support of others. And I'm a rock to many people in my life, you know. And so that pain was finding that actually I've required to be not just my own rock, but also allow other people to be my rock and lean on them, which was tough, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, talked to you recently. You've taken a trip back to the motherland to go back, maybe even beyond your origin story, but into the roots, into that root system. And where did you travel?
Traveled back to Ethiopia to begin with, my motherland. I did a 10-day Vipassana, my third 10-day silent meditation retreat in Addis Ababa, the hometown of my mother. And every day was crying with gratitude to finally see my mother for who she was, just a woman who was out of her comfort zone, who went to the UK, went to Europe to follow love and start a family, but to some degree felt disconnected from herself. And so I started to realize like my mother was just a kid, man. So all the things that happened throughout my life, and we can get into that, like the kind of rejection, or not so much the rejection, but the betrayal that I felt from my mother actually was all in design. It was all part of the grand scheme of things. And so Ethiopia set me up to then fly to Gabon, where I was initiated by a master of Bawiti tradition in Iboga, the plant medicine of my forefathers and foremothers. And that was one of the most harrowing, scary experiences I've ever had. It really shook me up and settled me back down after months of integration.
Tell us, what is the Iboga?
Iboga is one of the strongest plant medicines on planet Earth. It comes from a tree that only grows in a certain region in Western Africa. And it's something that I was told was being initiated throughout history, back to ancient Egypt and before. And it's something that I'd had a calling for from a very early age. I remember watching a TV program when I was a kid. It was called Tribes, and there's a guy called Bruce Parry who was the presenter. Yeah, and he would go to all these different parts of the world and engage with these different tribes. And one was when he went to Gabon and actually sat with the pygmy. And I saw him taking this Iboga, and I was like, wow, like it looks so scary. And yet at the same time, I was like deeply called to experience it. And so many, many years later, I actually met him in person and I told him the story. Wow. And that same night, I met someone who introduced me to a shaman who I then started my journey with. And so as a result of this connection, I made my way to Gabon. And I actually told Bruce Parry the year before I went to Gabon, I was like, I'd really like to go out there. And he gave me his blessing. And then within the year, I was out in Gabon sitting in the bush for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, when I think of Ibogaine, when I think of Ibogaine, I know it's used for like deep addiction. It's used for like really clearing out the trauma. People typically go there when it's like, well, I guess Westerners go when it's like a last resort. What were you seeking? What were you hoping to transform with that ceremony?
Well, you know what? It all comes down to sacred sons, as a lot of my life is nowadays. And it was this idea of like remembrance. Yeah. What are my roots? What's my heritage? And Africa has always been a part of me that I've been aware of. And I've been to Ethiopia a bunch of times as a kid. And yet at the same time, like I didn't know the songs. I didn't know the dances, the traditions of my people. And so going to Gabon was a way to connect with the continent of Africa, deep into the bloodline, and start to see beyond the veil actually as to what connects me back to my melanin. And bro, like I met my guides, I had support from Mama Africa, this like archetypical Gaia, like Mother Earth character. And yeah, really found some solace in the fact that like I'm not alone, that I can be here for my people, the diaspora across the world. And as a result, like I'm starting to do a lot more work with melanated people and starting to recognize that, you know, we all require some form of support. And it's about picking where it is that I can be the most effective, you know?
Yeah, man. Wow. That's really interesting there. Supportive Mama Africa. The ancestors and guides showing up. You know, how would you in your own way inspire others to seek out their roots? As you're on this journey, and this journey of life is like ever unfolding. But why I know that was important for you. So in your own way, how would you encourage someone to seek their roots? You know,
the simplest way that I found was just through song, through expression. Like just seek out the songs of your people, you know, whether it's just going back to your hometown, whether it's going back to your home country, learning some of the language, some of the meanings of those words. It's simple, man. It's just a Google search away, right? So that's the way that I started on this journey with Sacred Sons, like singing songs. I birthed the drum and I found that was where like I had like that heartbeat of the nation behind me, you know? Yeah.
I love that, through the songs. Through the songs, through the traditions, through the land, through the land. And is there also part of you, as your father?
My father's from British Guyana. So he's got British, Celtic, Gaelic and Scandinavian heritage. So that's my Caucasian European side.
Yeah. And so do you deepen into the roots on that side as well?
Yes. And that was what part of going to Scotland for Convergence 8 was about, because I have Scottish in me. My father's called Malcolm. Like, it's one of the most Scottish names there is. And so returning to that land, and also we did the Scotland Prime the year before, was like a homecoming again. And actually like being there with the bagpipes and the drums and the opening ceremony, all the brothers wearing kilts, dancing around. I was like, oh yeah, we're finally home. And you spoke a bit to this earlier about actually being on the battlefield.
Yes.
And I feel like that's something that's like deep in all of us, is the fact that we've had to wage wars from the ancestors. We've had to spill blood.
Yes.
And so the way that I sharpen myself with other brothers is to be in confrontation, actually, and to learn that this is okay to have healthy competition and to be able to face and sharpen one another, so that we can come out bigger, better than before.
Yeah. I know when I was in Scotland and we're standing in front of all of those men and the drums are playing, the bagpipes are playing, and, you know, to let out those ancient echoes, those roars, you know, amongst our brothers, and with the acknowledgement that we are privileged in this life to engage in a battle, onto a battlefield with no enemies. You know, and we're showing up not as an act of war, but as an act of love.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that feels all of our ancestors behind us, cheering us on, rooting for us. And do you feel that too?
I feel it, bro. Yeah, I dream about it a lot now as well. And that's something that I'm really aware of, is that more and more that I've stepped into this, and actually the way I see it is clearing my channel. So I talk about these 3 pillars: mind, body, spirit, self-inquiry, self-love, self-care, meditation, movement, manifestation. And as a result of being a hollow bone more and more, I start to feel like my vessel channeling these messages, these voices, these echoes of the ancestors. And yeah, they're present, brother. And through the song, and like you mentioned, through the connection with the land, being able to just sit in nature and like forest bathe, if that's the case, suddenly those voices become a little bit louder.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit stronger.
A little bit stronger.
A little bit stronger, piece by piece. The voices out here are going to get a little bit stronger. The men are starting to arrive. We're going to have teams popping off all over this land here in Los Angeles, this land of angels, the city of angels. That's exciting. Yeah. As these men come in, you know, brotherhood is the medicine here in this space. And there's also the need for that one-on-one coaching. So I just want to acknowledge you as a coach in this space, and someone who brings that kind of like that one-on-one potency. Because as brotherhood is the medicine, and I received the full cup from it, there's also the integration of this work.
Yeah.
There's also the day to day. There's also the brothers who go home and they don't have this close by. And so, like, what called you to that space, you know, for yourself of coaching others, of leading others, and then, you know, with Sacred Sons, we're about to like embark on this journey of calling in the one, calling in those men who want to up level their lives. What about that lights you up?
Wow, well, I found that like mentorship throughout my life was one of the biggest up-leveling, just the biggest, expansions I'd ever had, was having men and women in my life who initiated me deeper into self-leadership. And so as a result, I realized I had a natural knack, I had an ability to question and bring people back out of their heads into their hearts and be able to express with fearless authenticity. And so that's what I bring, you know, I bring this element of joy and this childish, youthful exuberance. And yet at the same time, there's this drill sergeant. There's this like very firm father in me, the uncle that I like to bring online, where it's like, you know what, like I'm going to love you with some tough questions, with some tough guidance. And at the same time, like we're going to set some goals, we're going to have some intentions, and we're going to stick to that. And when you're committed to this path and you bring some discipline and some clarity, then the world is your oyster.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you call in a brother who may be out there like, you know, I don't have it in me to go to the big event or to like put myself through an initiation or a rite of passage. I just want the tools. I want the connection. I want to be heard. You know, for a lot of men that come into these spaces, some of the wounding is like, no one cares, right? No one hears me. No one hears what I have to say. How would you invite that brother into the one, into mentorship, into coaching?
Yeah. The simplest thing is just to reach out. That's the first step. Reach out to me, reach out to Sacred Sons, and start to feel the potential actually of your own existence, right? You mentioned that people don't feel witnessed, and it's as simple as being seen. It's as simple as being heard. And that's why I offer. It's like, I'm here to lean on. I've got an ear. I'll be here to support you. And actually a lot of the work I do is just to hold space, just to witness, and let me be a mirror. Let me be a sounding board for what's coming up for you. And we can walk our way back home.
Yeah. You also coach women.
I do now,
A couple times, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You know, hit up Peter, Eugène, Bennett.
Eugène.
Eugène.
Yeah, Eugène. Yeah. Eugène, yeah.
We go.
It's got a little reflection on it.
Eugène.
Yeah, Eugène.
But in working with sisters, and you know, you're a handsome guy. I imagine you do pretty okay out there for yourself. I also imagine like relationship to the feminine with all of this awareness while providing safety.
Yeah.
This is also an edge for men in our lives and men who are on this path.
Yeah.
How has working with the feminine showed up for you?
Well, I'll start with my origin story. I mentioned my mother earlier, and I had a difficult relationship with women growing up. My sister, older than me, 7 years, would, you know, she just would treat me a certain way. Like, she had her own wounds. She had her own reasons for beating me up, actually physically and emotionally as well at times. And so I started to develop this mistrust of the feminine.
Right.
And then when I was 16, my cousin committed suicide, and I wasn't allowed to grieve.
Cousin you hid the shoes from.
It was a different cousin. Yeah, I've got a lot of cousins. My mum's got 5 brothers and 5 sisters, and my dad's got 15 half siblings. And so, yeah, we're big. And so as a result of that, my mother started to get, to disconnect, to draw herself away, and got into substance abuse, etc. And so I had this vast like gap between my caregiver, the person who always supported me, and I realized recently that I've been grieving my mother for 20 years. And as a result, I would self-medicate, whether with alcohol, drugs, or with women. And so I've seen this seeking of intimacy, and yet at the same time, like holding women at arm's distance. Never really truly like opening myself up, like protecting myself ultimately. And so now, like where I've done a year of celibacy to truly come back into my own power. 1 whole year, brother. Yeah, a little bit extra.
This is no easy task, I imagine.
Yeah, it was, you know, I mean, it was good for me, and it actually came a little bit easier than I expected, because I realized how important it is to redefine my relationship to the feminine and actually the feminine within, to really cultivate that self-love, bro. And I speak to this with a lot of people, like just taking myself out on dates, like pouring a bath, lighting a candle, burning some incense. And at the same time, like actually being able to like cultivate that mana. So doing a lot of semen retention as well, some Tantra, some energetic Kung Fu, as I like to call it. And deep down, what I've been really calling in for a year now is sacred union, is a monogamous, loving relationship to start a family. Yeah. And so the way that I speak to my brothers and to the men that I work with is about like taking it slow when it comes to relating to the feminine, being really patient, like as much as you can, being in integrity. And one thing I really want to stress is that regardless of where we're at, and sometimes people see us online and they expect a certain standard, like I'm still learning, I'm still growing, you know, and this past like month where I've started to get back out into the dating world and like, I'm scared, bro. Like I sometimes trip up over myself. I speak too quickly when it's like, I feel this connection and I really want there to be more to it. And I've realized that like, it's okay, that like, regardless of whether someone sees me as a men's work coach and like, oh, you know, you didn't keep to the commitment, the agreement that you made to me. It's like, that's life. And I've made my way and I said my piece, and I'll continue to come back into alignment.
I mean, yeah, to expect anyone to hold it all the time is a bit unrealistic. And it's like there's a valiant piece of wanting to better oneself, and specifically in relationship. And it's like, who do we do it for? We do it for the mothers. We do it for our daughters. We do it for all the children, right? And I know it's hard. I'm in a devoted relationship. I'm in my fatherhood path. I'm still a young dad. My oldest is 9. You know, I'm a 9-year-old dad. And things come up. It's like, this is the thing. Even on a path of embodiment, I tend to stay away from enlightenment, but just of embodiment, of integrity, of doing what you say and saying what you do. Like there are levels to it. And then once you feel like you got it, like, cool, I got this. That's when the next challenge comes. In my case, that's when the next baby's born, or that's when I have to be present for that transition from maiden to mother, from mother of 1 to mother of 2 to mother of 3. The relationship in the feminine is constantly unfolding and presenting itself anew. And so I have to be prepared to meet this woman in a new way. You know, almost every month. But I want to be here with you because you're also with the pulse of women who are in the spiritual community and also on this path. So like, what are you seeing out there? What are you seeing in the world in this way?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of women who've done the work, right? And they've been calling us in for a long time. And,
absolutely,
you know, you take a pulse check of the men who come to these events, to these trainings. A lot of them have been invited in by their partners, by their family, etc.
Shout out to all of the women who have called in.
Thank you, sisters.
Sacred sons. Thank you.
And so for me, you know, it's calling in the healthy masculine, the divine masculine. And you're right, man, it's about preparation. And for me, it's about preparing this vessel. And one thing I love to teach is the idea of being victim, which is that drama triangle of looking for some rescue, looking at the perpetrator, always blaming others, turning that into the victor, where we step into empowerment, where we can challenge, we can redefine, recreate ourselves through coaching. And then the vessel, which is this beautiful way just to flow and be a form in this life. And so when I truly am in alignment and I've done the work, all those pillars that we talk about, it's like, okay, now I can meet the sister where she's at and actually start to build a family, a home, a career. For me, it's about teamwork.
Yeah. For me, in my experience, it's about devotion.
Yes, I am.
And both in the work and in relationship, it's being fully committed, fully devoted, and that making that choice every single day. You know, Chris Rock has a bit that I used to like. He's like, you know, fathers, you need to wake up and look at yourself in the mirror and just say, fuck you. You know, like fuck you, man. Like, shut up. And there's a bit of truth to that. And it's not to say fuck me. It's to say, like, humble yourself. Have humility. Walk with grace. Show up for your family. Do the hard things. especially when it's hard.
Yeah.
Like coming at it from that place is strong medicine. And it's not to put myself in a place of being less than. It's about leading from the back. I find myself in these situations leading from the front, being big and loud. And I love that aspect of myself. And I also love the part of me that gets to get in the back seat and give energy so that these people who I am responsible for can thrive and can grow in a good way.
Yes.
And being devoted to that part is everything. It's everything. And I find in that devotion, the universe is in full reciprocity. And as long as I stay committed to what I say, then the blessings continue.
Yes, sir.
And so blessings on your journey into finding that divine union.
Thank you, brother.
It's something that so many of us out there are seeking. We've gotten calls from women. When is the Sacred Sons dating app? My guy is the freaking the headshot for our dating app.
The poster boy.
But yeah, what is it there? Because even in conscious relating, I know many conscious people, and they're still burning their relationships down. Relationships are hard. You got any advice? You got any advice for women looking for a spiritual man? How about that?
A beautiful way to come into union that I'm starting to discover is about radical honesty.
Yes.
And really letting it all hang out. Like my shadows, we spoke a bit about Jungian psychoanalysis, and realizing that the more open I am about myself to women, the more that she can receive, the more that she can see me, actually. And so I wouldn't necessarily say it's advice, but like a way that we can relate in healthy ways is just to be honest. You know, there's a lot of people out there playing games. There's a lot of people, you know, doing the thing and hiding or waiting to text someone back, I don't know, making them a little bit insecure. But my thing is, like, let's support one another by being clear and concise about where we're at. And like we do this at Sacred Sons. We talk about agreements, right? And so how can we set a container and relate with the feminine or relate with the masculine and be like really clear, like, this is what I'm looking for. Can you meet these agreements? And can we start to like actually build from there and have check-ins regularly and make sure that we're on the same page, on the same path?
Yeah. So you're in Africa.
Yes, sir.
You have support of Mama Africa.
Yes, sir.
You are transmuting the mother wound that you have incarnated into this lifetime. What is that dance like with the inner feminine? I want you to speak a bit more to that, because I think there's a lot of men out there who wouldn't understand what the fuck that means. Like your inner feminine? What is that? I have an understanding. What is your understanding?
The feminine for me is about receiving. Right? It's about that reciprocity, being able to receive and to give back, just like Mother Nature, Gaia, right? The idea of giving the clothes off our back. And so when I'm deep in my feminine, I'm really feeling that, like I'm just here to listen. And it goes back to being in the land. So when I was in Africa, I'd wake up with the sun and I'd pray, and I'd have that moment to really like take it all in. And then I'd sing, you know, and I'd come back into creativity, and I'd flow and I'd dance and I'd move. And so for me, a big thing, and I like to talk about swagger when I'm in circles. And for me, that swagger, that movement, like just walking the way you talk, like being embodied, is a way to really bring that online, actually. And it's through the body that I most express my feminine.
Yeah. How about the shadow feminine?
Ooh. Well, the shadow feminine comes up when I'm feeling really like needy, and I'm in my bed at home, and this teenager comes online, and I don't want to see the world, and I just eat whatever, and I order in takeaway, and I'm watching and abusing content, and I'm just completely lost in the source. And so for me, that hiding is where my shadow feminine comes out, actually. And that's when I've got my brothers on the line, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, thank you for calling, thank you for checking in.
Yeah, man. And that's just it. There's a willingness that's required to even pick up the phone in that moment. You know, a lot of this work is just about being willing to step in. Yeah. And at Sacred Sons in Scotland, we step in. We step in. And that's the difference, right? it's not that we're not going to go through it. It's that we're not going to hide, right? We'll take that time. We'll take that rest for ourselves.
Yeah.
We'll take that self-care time too.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to binge watch a show and fucking eat that ice cream.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're blessed in this life. We're blessed in this life to live like kings. And we don't make that the standard, right? We make that call.
Yeah.
We make that call. You also have brother Jack, who's kind of like on the leadership path with you. Shout out to London, now Ibiza Jack.
Jack in the house.
Shout out to Jack. What is that kind of like brotherhood relationship meant to you?
Bro, well, we first met on the leadership calls, and I was in the States, he was in the UK, and we have a story about like both kind of butting heads a little bit, like kind of taking each other in and not quite figuring each other out. And I think a lot of like really strong relationships in my life start like that. It's like, okay, like why is this person triggering me? Like what's coming up? What am I projecting, And actually we spoke to that, we've been able to like, we see each other, we truly inspire one another. And there's moments throughout our journey, particularly like both stepping into leadership at the same time, bringing through these trainings in Europe, where it's like, oh, like he's doing better than me, or like, oh, like I'm feeling a little bit like in competition. And so like the reality of what I speak to, radical honesty and transparency, is the more that we've checked in and the more we've spoken to things, the deeper we've got and the more that we can trust each other, actually. And I love that, brother, like a blood brother. And the truth of blood brothers is sometimes you come to blows, and we can play and we can also fight, and it's all part of the process, and it's what makes us us, actually. And I think that's why it's so strong in Europe right now, man. Like,
this work is hitting Europe. This work of masculine alchemy, men's work, is hitting Europe right now. This is the time, this is the time for peak embodiment. Men are seeking this work out. Call in the European brothers. You know what I'm saying? Let them know that they're welcome. Let them know that you're going to be there. How would you call in brothers to sacred sons?
Brothers, as you can see, like the exemplification of leadership, right? Of these men who've really shown up for all of us, who've prayed for us. And that's what I did. When I was a kid, I was like, I'm praying for these men, these inspirational like figures in my life to really like hold me up. I kept saying I'm looking for a team of superheroes. And that's what I found with Sacred Sons, brother. And the more that people show up, the more they actually get involved and come to the leadership training or join the one, whatever offerings we have, the more they can start to up level, the more they can start to be in service. And for me, that's my life purpose, actually. It's to be a vessel for whatever's coming through, whether it's the ancestors, whether it's spirit, the universe, call it what you want. And so all the brothers in Europe that are listening right now, like this is the opportunity to meet yourself, to truly walk home back to authenticity, to joy.
From victim to vessel, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have walked that path, and now you're leading others. And now you are that superhero. You're on the squad. You're one of the Avengers on the squad. I love to see it. I love to see it. Sacred Sons, we're coming to Europe. We're coming to Australia. We're coming to South Africa. This is not a global takeover. This is a global expansion of consciousness. And it's working. And it's working because of men like you showing up, standing up, and saying like, yes, like I'm answering the call here. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. And vice versa, brother. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, it wasn't for the founders and creating this opportunity for all of us. And you're right, it is a global expansion, and it is part of this new earth, this ancient future.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I'm really starting to recognize, is that actually we are standing on the shoulders of giants, and we are right here, right now, where like history is in the making.
Yes.
Every moment when I'm here and I look around, like the opening ceremonies, the closing ceremonies from C7 to C8, it's like, wow, like this is what the world has been calling for. Rites of passage, boys becoming men, starting to support their families, their communities, themselves. And it's awe-inspiring. It's kind of my, like, I wouldn't say it's an expectation now, but it's like a standard. Like, we're talking about standards.
Creating a new standard.
Excellence, bro. Yeah. Supreme.
Yeah. And I love this idea you've been sharing, which is like, instead of seeking perfection, seek truth, seek honesty. Because we know the world's not perfect. We've got aliens being disclosed, by world governments. Like, we've all known that, potentially there's other life in the universe, but to have it confirmed and acknowledged by world governments is something new that's happening. We don't know what's coming for us. And we know as men that we have to be prepared. for whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because I saw so many people lose their bearings over COVID, over having to stay home for a few weeks. Like that really rattles the foundation, the fabric of society. And so when the fabric of society starts to get tears, when the seam starts to come undone, it is the responsibility of men to show up and to repair. Repair our relationships. Repair, first and foremost with that relationship to self, so that we can be of service to this world. As humanity is in this state of ascension and collapse, because it is. Like life and death, it's happening all in this moment. Where do you see this world going? Like, I want to go big here. Like, what do you see as possible in our lifetime?
Out with the old, in with the new. The idea of transformation is amongst us. Like, I use this metaphor of the caterpillar in the cocoon. And that's how it feels at this moment, this metamorphosis. And things are confusing. Things are chaotic out there in the world, like you just spoke to. But the reality is, it's preparing us as a collective, as a one world nation of people, to come out the other side, the butterfly, free, just flying. And that's how I see it, and it's going back to the lands. We spoke to that before, finding our way through the elements, starting to listen to nature again, starting to come home to, what has been under our nose all along. The beauty of the cycles, the rising of the sun, the setting of the moon. And so for me, that's what I'm starting to deepen into as a vessel, is starting to be here with all that's around me, starting to listen, starting to see deeper. And so, the world is bright. And it's like going to a festival. You ever been to a conscious festival where everything's beautiful and it's like harmonious, and it's like, this is what the world is going to be. Once we step out of our shadows, once we drop our projections, our judgments, and start to acknowledge that we are all related.
Yeah. I've been to some transformational festivals. It's been a big part of my journey. And there's also that moment, right? There's that moment when the lights come on at the end of a night of partying. And you see all the trash, and you see all the spills, and you see all the waste that was left behind. And that part, there's a part where like that more beautiful world has a cost. And I believe, just like I was speaking in terms of like being devoted, if we are devoted to that more beautiful world, we will clean up the mess.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We
will not leave the filth in the shadows. We will not exclude the brothers and sisters who are right here on this earth alongside of us. Like this is a we rise together. So as we break out of those cocoons, and as you were speaking, I was seeing like all these butterflies, not just one, but like all these monarchs, all these kings, all these queens rising together and like really holding together that fabric, because that's what's needed now on this planet. And that's what we're doing, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being a massive part of it. With that, is there any piece of wisdom, any prayer, any song that you would like to leave with the brothers and sisters who are listening?
You're exactly where you're meant to be. That all is welcome, that in those times of pain, of sheer desperation, that you have all that you require within. And sometimes it's as simple as reaching out. Sometimes it's as simple as speaking to brothers, sisters like ourselves, seeking support through coaching, through the one, coming to events, getting involved in brotherhood, in sisterhood, in your community. And for me, like I said, a life of purpose is service. And that's what I discovered, I could have been dead and gone. Like I went through a lot as a child and a young teen, fighting, and I was in hospital a few times and things like that. And what really saved me was realizing that there was so much more for me to do on this planet. And so find your purpose, find what breaks your heart truly, because in that pain where you've struggled and you find it really difficult to survive is where you can thrive and help others thrive around you. Victim to victor to vessel, yes, I.
I see it in you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
With that, Peter,
Eugène,
Bennett,
Bennett.
Adam Jackson, Sacred Sons. We're out, family.